A lawsuit against Harvard University for discriminating against Asian American applicants just took a new twist with claims that the bias against them is a, quote, personal thing, including such traits as positive personality, likability, and attractive to be with.
Well, Asians are the largest growing segment in the American populace.
He can say what he wants, it doesn't really affect me.
3 top stereotypes that we found in our study for Asian American men are being good at math, having small genitalia, and being good at computers.
So no, 2/3 of them are not CEOs.
So I'd just like to ask, have you ever experienced racism?
Yeah, I have actually. And I've experienced it not too long ago. Recently, like there's a pub just down the road. I was there with my girlfriend and her mate on, I think it was a Tuesday or Wednesday night. And there were these like sort of middle-aged to like 50-odd-year-old like two Irish couples there who were drinking. And they're like locals, and so they were like dancing to like really cheesy music, and I try and get us to dance, and it was all fun and games for like, I don't know, 10 minutes. And then out of the blue, this woman just, one of the Irish women just goes, "Oh, you look like Jackie Chan, do some Jackie Chan moves."
Is this like whilst in a drunken stupor?
Just really casually, just like, "Oh, you look just like Jackie Chan." I'm like, I know I don't. So like that's the only famous Chinese like East Asian person they could think of, and everyone always says that, "Oh, you look like Jackie Chan," and that's like a very common.
And how did you react?
I just laughed awkwardly and then kind of just kept my distance from them, because like I kind of just can't be bothered to just, you know, us having a go at them.
Not necessarily me, but so an example would be like, I would be uncomfortable if I go to a pub and I'm the only Asian person there, which is very common. So apart from central London, but outside of London, it's very common. So even though they haven't said anything, you can tell that they're not very comfortable with me being there or not welcomed. So that kind of racism, not directly towards me.
The indirect racism, like the underlying racism that you sense and no one's actually talking about. See, this type of reaction that you've given is quite passive. And we've noticed that a lot of East Asians kind of, that they show this type of passivity towards racism. So that's what we're trying to explore. So I'd like to just ask, like, what stops you then in that moment from then, you know, taking an alternative route of reaction, which could be, say, violent or aggressive or something that other ethnic minorities like would do, or how they would react? Like, what causes you to be quite almost laid back about it, like just accepting of it?
I think comes to attitude. A lot of the times, like when I grew up, my parents would be like either you'd tell like authority, like a teacher or something, if it was during like school, because I always get bullied at school, or it was like, it's not worth it. It's like, it's not worth your trouble to like lash out at them in any way. Like it's like, my parents have always been like, it's them being the terrible person, and there's no point in you reacting in such a negative way, and like don't let it get to you.
It's like stooping to their
level. Almost like stooping to their level, like, because what they want out of you essentially is a reaction. But then for me inside, I'm like, oh, I do get very, very annoyed by it, because I think it's got to a stage where sort of casual racism is like, you can get away with it with East Asians quite easily, because we don't.
That's an interesting way to put it, casual racism. I like that as a definition, because that is really what we're addressing. It's become casual.
My belief is, if you don't make the topic as common as it would be for other, like for example for black people, you know, if they're getting racism from it, it's just, it won't be said as much. Because I've said this before, like through my friends, is like, if you don't bring up the topic, no one's going to really talk about it because it's not offending you as much.
Yeah, so it's like out of sight, out of mind.
But if you make it known, they're going to say it more. They're going to tell you, they know your feelings about it.
The way we react, it's sort of, the people who like are racist, it's kind of like, oh, it's okay because they're not reacting.
So across the board, would you say that East Asian culture, just generally, I know each country is different, but generally that attitude comes from cultural heritage and to an extent even religious heritage?
Yeah, definitely cultural heritage. Like, and then because a lot of Buddhist countries in East Asia, so it's kind of like taking a step back and like they're doing what they're doing. You keep that, make sure you're doing your thing right. As long as you're doing, like, your morals are in the right place and your ethics are in the right place, then like you're not at a loss.
Like so for example, my dad is Christian, my mum is Buddhist, right? Okay. They both didn't push me to follow which one, but
complementary religion.
Yes. So like my dad would make me go to church every Sunday, just to, when I was younger, just to see. My mum would take me to the temple and pray and meditate and stuff like that. So it does help. Religion does play a part. It would help, especially for younger kids when they're growing up with it. It's down to the culture rather than the religion. Yeah. I believe that's keeping us like calm and steady and not overthinking things.
That's really interesting because one not necessarily an argument, but one thought that we came across was that East Asians have like, a lot of them have let go of culture in this country, moving to the Western world, have let go of a lot of culture and traditions, and even just traditional dress, just generally speaking, that they've integrated to the point of assimilation. So what thought I had was that, have they assimilated to the point where they see no difference between themselves and the perpetrators of the racism per se? So you wouldn't necessarily notice the racism because you don't see yourself as different from them. Do you think that could also, in some cases, contribute to it not being spoken of?
Most likely, yes. Because obviously you're trying to adapt to the Western culture. Yeah. So obviously when you try and adapt to it, especially for so many years, especially so, for example, my mother, she's been here for what, 25 years? About 20, let's say 30 years. She's been here for 30 years. Okay. So obviously now she's adapted to like how people eat and the way they dress, just all this. So obviously she must think to herself, well, not think, she's British, so she'll think she's British and this and that because she's been here for 30 years.
I don't agree with that. I think because China always, because the thing is why China is so booming right now, I think they have kind of like a little thing where they were always slated and being uncultured and backwards and like all the like racial slurs. Like, oh, people eating dogs and stuff like that. I'm just saying some people eat dogs in China, but because I think it's mainly like America and Britain always like treading down on like Chinese people, and now the boom is there. They're kind of like that. I think there's a kind of.
Do you think there's a jealousy there?
And I think that it's hard to say. Like it's kind of like people know there's the racism, but they don't. It's not like an immediate reaction.
Do you think that there should be more education on racism towards East Asians as a whole, for people, even as young as in primary school, to be educated on behaviour that's not acceptable?
Yeah, 100%. Not even just on racism, like sexism and just equality as a general. Like when we're in school, I don't remember actually ever being taught that. Yeah. And I thank my parents for teaching me like how to be like, teaching me equality basically, like women, like races are all like the same, like inside. Yeah. You shouldn't judge someone from their appearance.
There needs to be a balance between each culture. So example, like your school. So if you're going to learn about, if you're going to learn about the English history, you want to try and learn about other history as well. Especially it's about now in London, there's so many different people from different countries that live here. So you would think you would need to change the way you teach your history in school. Obviously, don't get me wrong, the English history is important, but
world history is also equally important.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the school would be a big part of it. So especially some areas as well, when there's there's actually more Asian people than white people, or, you know, or more black people than white people.
It's kind of true. Like at school, you had to be excelling to be like noticed in any sort of way.
Because you're already seen as being at a disadvantage, so you have to try that much harder. Okay.
I mean, that's I guess why we got like a weird stereotype of being really hardworking and stuff. But like you know when you can sort of sense it. It's like sort of like if you meet someone, and you sense they're like kind of judging you in a certain way or thinking about you in a certain way, which is like predisposition due to stereotypes. Yeah, I feel like I get that a lot.
So do you feel like, because it's a question that comes up a lot, is that there's a conflict within people, within East Asian people brought up in Western countries, that there's the East Asian mindset of just accepting it and moving on and, you know, being the bigger person. And then there's the Western mindset, which is, no, I must stand up for myself. I need to like put them in their place and show them they can't talk to me like that. So do you ever feel that in a conflict where it's a clash of East and West?
Because I remember when I was a really little kid, I was like 10, 11, and there was this kid in the year above me at school who always like bullied me. And then there was one time near my house, he like tried to beat me up, and I ended up beating him up because I was just so angry because he's trying to beat me up. And then I never got touched by him again. Like he just left me alone after that, which is really strange. But that's the polar opposite of what I've been taught.
The racism that I can see between like for like Asian people in general is, it's not really words, it's more of like the culture or the stuff they do, you know. So for example, like
stereotypical insult.
There's no wording for it like people would use. Like they'll just say, oh, you know, the clothes they wear. I'm not going to go into detail about it, but just clothes they wear, their food, you know, shops or whatever, like stuff like that. And then they'll use that as an example. Like
it's almost like just fit in, be like them.
I think it is, but it isn't at the same time. It's like, it's still conflicting. I think there's a lot of conflict between our attitudes.
I mean, it's a lot deeper than what I'm, you know, describing it as, obviously. So to break it down, could you tell me the root cause of this passivity within the culture that, you know, is fueling this kind of reaction or lack of reaction to racism?
Because of what our ancestors have taught us, to always be respectful, you know, to elders, especially to elders, but to just people, even strangers and stuff like that, regardless of the situation, you know, never to be aggressive, you know, keep our problems to ourselves. Like we've always been taught to not
overshare.
Yeah, not to bother anyone, you know, even within the family sometimes.
So I would say then it's almost seen as your dignity.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So your self-respect is reliant on people viewing you in a certain way.
Yes. Because like they will, you know, my parents will always tell me like, you know, regardless of how rude someone is, this and that, do you need to be in that level to, you know, give them a reply and this and that, you know, just be calm about it, you know, and just as long as you know you're respectful, you can't be in the wrong.
Like it comes back to the idea of, you know, just because we're immigrants, we just don't want, like, you don't want trouble, so you always like, oh, just blend in, just leave it kind of attitude, just let it happen and move on. I'm not saying it's not a bad mentality, but it has its like pros and cons of basically. Like the cons is that people will be racist to me.
How many generations do you think it will take to fix this? You know, like certain problems will take at least 2 generations to fix. Do you think this is something that could be, I use the word fixed very loosely because it's obviously a lot deeper than what we're just discussing. There's more to it. But just to use, for lack of a better term, do you think this could be fixed within a generation?
I reckon another 2 or 3. Because with young kids,
I feel like
it comes with the colonial mindset again, doesn't it? Because they went to Asia, they went like Hong Kong and everything, South Asia, everything, and I think it's still ingrained into them. But if I look at, because I pick up my nephew from school and he's playing with kids and stuff, and I was like he doesn't say he gets bullied or anything. He's like, oh, he gets on with all his friends. So I feel like because we're living in a more modern age, people come up like are brought up in more multicultural environments, so they're more accustomed to it. So that comes with like the globalization.